Don Blakeman from the USGS, the United States Geological Survey, joins us now on the phone. Don, thank you for being with us. What more can you tell us about this earthquake?
Well, at this point, all we really have is the preliminary information on the quake parameters itself. It's a little bit early to get very many reports in directly. Right now, we have a 7.6 as the magnitude. That may change slightly as we get more data in. It is about 180 kilometers east of Acapulco, and it is on shore, so we shouldn't have any tsunami issues with this. But there certainly will be some damage.
And one of the questions, of course, is where the epicenter is. Do we know what the sort of population density is? What sort of, is it a rural, is it an urban part of Mexico?
Well, it's mostly rural. We don't have very shortly we'll have maps up with estimates of what the damage may be and exactly what the population concentration may be. We don't have that at the moment.
And when we talk about a 7.6 magnitude earthquake, that is a fairly powerful quake.
Definitely. It is a major earthquake. And so, as I said, we will expect some damage, and there's a possibility of casualties as well.
And once we talk about the epicenter, the quake being about 17 kilometers below the surface, I was talking with Jenny Harrison, our meteorologist, before. She said that is a fairly shallow quake. It
is a shallow quake, and that of course, contributes to the possibility of damage and casualties, because if you get a large earthquake like this that is shallow, it just means that the quake itself is much more closely located to buildings and so forth. You get a lot heavier shaking with a shallow earthquake.
What about aftershocks? Can we expect aftershocks anytime soon?
Absolutely.
And what magnitude should they be on?
Well, typically we expect, the rule of thumb, and of course these things don't always follow this, the general rule, but if you have a quake in the 7.5 range, you're likely to have at least one aftershock in the 6.5 range and multiple ones down in the 5s. So we can expect some aftershocks from this, certainly.
If we look at historically what's happened over the last couple of years, we had a 7.0 earthquake in Haiti, we had an 8.0 earthquake in China. Both of those caused a lot of deaths and a lot of destruction. So we now got an earthquake somewhere between the two of them. And I guess what we're simply waiting for now is just how many people live in this area of Mexico to find out how extensive the damage will be. Is that basically the case?
Well, that's part of it. I mean, certainly population density is very important in the outcome of these situations, but it also has to depend on how well the buildings are built, the soil that the buildings happen to be on. So that's why we can't speculate too much. You just have to, gather the reports and see what actually has happened.
And when you hear that this was felt all the way to Mexico City, which I'm told is some 200 kilometers away, maybe even more, are you surprised by that, or is that fairly typical?
It's very typical, and there are two things going on here in this area. The first is, of course, it's a very large, shallow quake, so it will be felt widely. I mean, the energy carries out a great distance. So it'll be felt over a very wide area. The other thing is that a large part of Mexico City is constructed on an old lake bed, and those sediments that the city is built on tend to amplify waves. So it's very typical to have earthquakes in Mexico that are felt strongly in Mexico City.
And one of the most famous earthquake faults, I guess, in the world is the San Andreas fault, further north to San Francisco and Los Angeles. What are we talking about here when we come down the coast from California to Mexico to where this quake happened?
Well, they're all associated with a Pacific plate boundary, and that's why California is an active area seismically, and the same with Mexico. So, in general, it's just associated with the plate boundary, the edge of a plate, and so those are very earthquake-prone areas.
Right now, what do you think the situation would be around this epicenter? What would people have felt, those who would be living close to where the earthquake happened?
Very heavy shaking for as much as probably 20 seconds, I would guess, 20, 30 seconds, something like that.
And what sort of buildings would be brought down by that?
Well, of course, those that are not built as well are going to suffer damage sooner. I can't really speculate on exactly what may happen.